The dust storm hit without warning, turning the Martian horizon into a wall of red chaos. Jake Morrison was securing the livestock pens when he saw her stumbling through the gale, a figure in tattered environmental suit barely staying upright. He didn't think. He ran. She collapsed into his arms before he reached her, suit alarm screaming about oxygen depletion. Jake half-carried, half-dragged her toward the main habitat dome, his own suit protesting the exertion. The wind tried to rip them apart, but he'd hauled 200-pound feed sacks through worse. She weighed nothing by comparison. Inside the airlock, Jake stripped off her helmet. The woman beneath was unlike anyone he'd seen. Her skin had a faint silver undertone. Her eyes were too large and perfectly black, and when she gasped for air, her chest moved in a rhythm that seemed wrong, not human. The realization should have scared him. It didn't. He carried her to the medical bay, such as it was. A frontier ranch 40 miles from the nearest settlement didn't have much beyond basic supplies. He connected her to the oxygen generator and watched her breathing stabilize. Her suit bore no identification, no colony markings, nothing. Just strange symbols etched into the chest plate that seemed to shimmer in the light. She woke 3 hours later, eyes snapping open with frightening alertness. Jake stepped back, hands raised. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke in perfect English with an accent he couldn't place. "You saved me. Couldn't exactly leave you out there," Jake said. "Storm like that would have killed you in minutes." "What happened?" "My transport crashed. I walked for 2 days." She sat up slowly, testing her limbs. "I am called Vara, Jake Morrison. This is my ranch. Well, my family's ranch. Just me now." He grabbed a water bottle from the counter. "You should drink something." Vara accepted it, studying the container before drinking. Her movements were precise, calculated. "You live alone here?" "Yeah. Parents died in the colony plague 5 years back. Never saw the point in leaving." Jake shrugged. "The livestock need tending, and someone's got to keep the protein farms running for the settlements. You are alone on this world?" "No, there's about 15,000 colonists spread across the southern hemisphere. We're just remote out here." Jake pulled up a chair. "Where were you heading?" Vara's expression shifted, something like pain crossing her features. "Away." "I was running away." Jake knew that look. He'd worn it himself plenty of times. "From what?" "My people. My responsibilities. Everything I was born to be." She looked at him directly. "I do not expect you to understand. Try me. I've got nowhere to be." Over the next hour, Vara told him a story that sounded impossible. She was from a species called the Kelrath, a civilization that had mastered faster-than-light travel millennia before humans left Earth. Her people controlled 17 star systems and commanded fleets that could glass entire planets. And she was married to their supreme commander, their war chief, a being named Korath who had never lost a battle. "So you're royalty," Jake said when she finished. "I am property," Vara corrected. "Our culture binds wives to their husbands absolutely. I have no voice, no choice, no freedom. When Korath decided to expand into human space, I knew I could not remain silent. But speaking against him meant death." She looked down at her hands. "So I ran. Jake should have been terrified. Should have immediately contacted the colonial authority. Instead, he found himself saying, 'You can stay here as long as you need.'" The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Vara proved surprisingly capable with ranch work. She learned quickly, adapting to the livestock handling protocols and even improving some of Jake's inefficient systems. She had a sharp mind for logistics and engineering, skills wasted in her former life. They talked during the long Martian evenings. Vara was fascinated by human independence, by the concept of choosing your own path. Jake found himself seeing his simple life through new eyes, appreciating freedoms he'd taken for granted. "Your people fought for this," Vara said one night, watching the distant lights of New Phoenix settlement. "You demanded your autonomy from Earth. You built something new." "Cost a lot of lives," Jake replied. "The Independence War wasn't pretty, but you won."
"You chose," she turned to him.
"I have never chosen anything in my life until now." Jake wanted to tell her she could stay forever, that she'd earned her freedom. But he knew better. The universe didn't work that way. The ships appeared on the morning of the 16th day. Jake was feeding the protein vats when his perimeter sensor screamed alerts. He ran to the communications terminal and felt his stomach drop. 8 Kelrath warships in high orbit, each one large enough to swallow his entire ranch. Vara appeared behind him, her face pale. They found me. How? My suit. I should have destroyed it completely. The tracker was embedded deeper than I thought. She gripped his shoulder. Jake, you must tell them I forced you, that I threatened you.
They will kill you otherwise.
Like hell I will. The communication panel crackled to life. The boy spoke in the Kelrath language, harsh and commanding. Vara responded, her tone defiant. The conversation grew heated. What's happening? Jake demanded. Korath himself is here. He demands I return immediately. Vara's hands shook. He says if I do not, he will consider this planet hostile territory. He will sterilize the surface and claim Mars for the Kelrath Empire. Jake looked at his ranch, at everything his family had built. Then he looked at Vara, this woman who'd risked everything just to taste freedom. Tell him no, Jake said quietly. You do not understand. He commands. I understand perfectly. Jake stood straighter. You're under my protection. Tell him if he wants you, he'll have to come through me. Vara stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But Jake Morrison had never backed down from anything in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. The first Kelrath shuttle landed an hour later, and Jake knew everything was about to change. The shuttle touched down 200 yards from the main habitat, its landing thrusters scorching the red Martian soil black. Jake stood at the airlock door, Vara beside him despite his protests. He'd armed himself with his father's old plasma rifle, though he doubted it would make any difference against whatever came out of that ship. The shuttle's ramp descended with a hiss of pneumatics. 6 warriors emerged first, each standing 7 feet tall in powered armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. They moved with predatory grace, weapons ready but not aimed. Then came Korath. The war chief was massive, nearly 8 feet of muscle and menace encased in ceremonial armor etched with what Jake assumed were battle honors. His face was angular and severe, eyes the color of burning copper. When he spoke, his voice carried across the distance without amplification. Human, you harbor my wife. This is an act of war. Jake activated his suit's external speakers. She came here of her own free will. She's asking for asylum. Korath's laugh was harsh. Asylum. You offer asylum to the wife of the supreme commander of the Kelrath Empire? You are either brave or profoundly stupid. Maybe both, Jake admitted. But she's staying here unless she chooses to leave. She has no choice. She is mine by sacred law, by contract, by the will of the gods themselves. Korath gestured, and his warriors advanced several steps. Stand aside, human. This does not concern you. Everything on this ranch concerns me. Jake raised his rifle slightly. Not aiming, just ready, including people under my protection. Vara stepped forward, placing herself between Jake and the approaching warriors. She spoke in Kelrath, rapid and forceful. Korath responded, his tone growing darker. The exchange lasted several minutes, tension ratcheting higher with each word. Finally, Vara switched back to English. Jake, he offers a compromise. If I return willingly, he will not destroy your colony. If I refuse, he initiates bombardment in 1 hour. That's not a compromise. That's extortion. It is how my people negotiate. Vara turned to face him fully. I cannot allow 15,000 humans to die because of me. I must go. No. Jake's voice was firm. Call the colonial authority. Tell them what's happening. The nearest defense fleet is 3 days away. This will be over in an hour.
Jake's mind raced. 3 days.
That was all they needed. Just had to keep Korath talking for 3 days until help arrived. Impossible odds, but he'd worked with worse. Korath, Jake called out. I challenge your claim. The war chief went very still. What did you say? I challenge your ownership of Vara. In human law, she's a free person. If you want to take her by force, that's an act of war against Earth and all her colonies. Jake lowered his rifle. But if you're so sure of your claim, prove it. Debate me. Let's settle this like civilized beings. You dare? Korath's warriors raised their weapons, but he stopped them with a gesture. You would debate me on matters of law and tradition? Why not? If your claim is so solid, it should withstand scrutiny. Jake took a gamble. Unless you're afraid a simple rancher might poke holes in it. Korath's expression shifted to something like amusement. You attempt to bait me. Crude, but I appreciate the audacity. He considered for a long moment. We will debate. But know this, human. When I prove my claim beyond any doubt, Vara returns with me, and you face judgment for your interference. And if you can't prove it, Impossible. But if such a miracle occurred, I would grant Vara her freedom and compensate you for your hospitality. Korath gestured to his warriors. Stand down. We negotiate. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He bought time. Now he just had to figure out what to do with it. They gathered in Jake's largest storage dome, hastily converted into a meeting space. Korath brought his 6 warriors, while Jake contacted the Colonial Authority and demanded they send a legal representative. To everyone's surprise, they arrived within 2 hours via emergency shuttle. Attorney Lisa Chen looked like she'd just rolled out of bed, which she probably had. This is insane, she muttered to Jake while setting up recording equipment. You've started an interstellar incident over a woman you've known for 2 weeks. She deserves better than slavery, Jake replied. Noble. Also possibly suicidal. Lisa pulled up her legal database on a portable terminal. I've been reading about Kelrath marriage law during the flight. It's absolute. Once bound, the wife belongs to the husband in every legal sense. Their entire civilization is built on this. Then their civilization is wrong. Morally? Maybe. Legally? Lisa shook her head. That's what we're here to determine. The debate began formally, with both sides stating their positions. Korath argued from tradition, from Kelrath law that had stood for 10,000 years. He produced documents, contracts signed in Vara's own genetic code, binding her to him until death. Lisa countered with human rights law, with Earth conventions on personal autonomy. She argued that Vara, having set foot on Mars and requesting asylum, fell under human jurisdiction. The Kelrath marriage contract, while valid in Kelrath space, held no authority here. You speak of jurisdiction, Korath said. Mars is not Earth. It is a frontier world barely established. By what authority do you claim it? By the authority of 15,000 human colonists who live here, work here, and call it home, Lisa replied. By the Interstellar Settlement Act of 2247, which grants self-governance to any human colony exceeding 10,000 residents. Mars qualifies self-governance among humans. Vara is Kelrath. She falls under our jurisdiction, not yours. She falls under her own jurisdiction, Jake interjected. She's a person, not property. She gets to choose. Korath turned his burning gaze on Jake. You understand nothing of our ways. Vara was born to a noble house. She was raised knowing her duty. The contract was signed when she came of age, binding her to me and me to her. This is not slavery. This is sacred bond, a bond she didn't choose, Jake said. You keep talking about her duty, her obligation. What about her wants? Her dreams? Did anyone ever ask Vara what she wanted? What she wants is irrelevant. We are born to serve the Empire. I serve as war chief. She serves as my wife. This is order. This is civilization. That's not civilization. That's a cage with better decoration. Korath slammed his fist on the table, denting the metal. You lecture me on civilization? Your species has existed in the stars for barely 2 centuries. My people have built empires while yours were still living in caves. Do not presume to teach me about order and duty. Then teach me, Jake said, keeping his voice level. Explain why someone as smart as Vara, someone who could run circles around most people I know, should spend her life as decorative property. What does your empire gain from wasting that potential? For the first time, Korath seemed uncertain. She represents our values, our traditions, by being silent, by having no voice? Jake leaned forward. I've seen what Vara can do in 2 weeks. She redesigned my protein farm's efficiency by 30%. She solved a water reclamation problem I'd been fighting for months. She did that while supposedly running away, while scared and alone in alien territory. Imagine what she could do if she was free to actually try. Vara had been silent throughout the debate, as was apparently expected in Kelrath culture. Now she spoke, her voice quiet but clear. I love knowledge, I love solving problems, I love learning how things work and making them better. She looked at Korath. You have known me for 5 years. Did you know this about me? Korath said nothing. You did not ask. You never asked. Vara stood slowly. I served you with perfect obedience. I never spoke against you in public. I maintained our household with flawless precision, and you never once wondered if I was happy, if I was fulfilled, if I wanted more. You had everything a wife could want, Korath said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. I had status, I had a beautiful cage. Vara's hands trembled, but I did not have choice. I did not have freedom. I did not have myself. The silence that followed was profound. Lisa looked between them, fingers poised over her terminal. Jake held his breath, waiting. Korath finally spoke, his voice softer than before. I followed my duty. I did what was expected of me. I treated you with honor, as tradition demands. I know, Vara said. You were not cruel. You were not unkind. You simply did not see me as a person. None of our people do. Wives are assets, valued but owned. That is our way. That is our way, Korath repeated, but the words sounded hollow. Perhaps it is time for a new way, Vara suggested. Lisa seized the moment. The Kelrath Empire has signed 17 trade agreements with human colonies. Each agreement includes a clause recognizing human legal authority over human citizens in Kelrath space. Reciprocity would suggest that Kelrath law should apply to Kelrath citizens in human space. However, there is a superseding clause in the Interstellar Sapient Rights Declaration, which both our civilizations signed. That declaration states that any sapient being has the right to choose their own path when not subject to lawful imprisonment or contract entered into with full, informed consent. The marriage contract was signed, Korath argued, but his heart wasn't in it. Was it informed consent? Was Vera told she could refuse? Was she given genuine alternatives? Or was she raised from birth knowing she had no choice but to accept? Lisa pulled up documents on her screen. Because according to the declaration, consent obtained through lifelong conditioning and social pressure doesn't qualify as free consent. Korath stood abruptly, his warriors tensing. For a moment, Jake thought it was over, that the war chief would simply take Vara by force and damn the consequences. Instead, Korath walked to the dome's transparent wall, staring out at the Martian landscape. I have conquered 17 worlds, he said quietly. I have commanded fleets numbering in the thousands. I have never lost a battle, never failed a mission, never questioned my path. He turned back to face them. And now a human rancher and a lawyer have defeated me with words and logic. The universe has a cruel sense of humor. This doesn't have to be defeat, Jake said carefully. Could be evolution. You ask me to overturn 10,000 years of tradition. I'm asking you to let one person choose her own path. That's all. Korath looked at Vara for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decision. If I grant you freedom, you will become an outcast. Our people will not accept you. You can never return home. I know, Vara said. You will face hardship. Humans will fear you, distrust you. Some may hate you simply for being Kelrath. I know. And still you choose this? I choose myself, Vara said firmly. For the first time in my life, I choose who I want to be. Korath closed his eyes briefly, and Jake could see the internal struggle. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. Not defeat. Understanding. The contract is void, Korath declared. Vara of House Kelris, you are released from all bonds and obligations. You are free. Vara's legs buckled. Jake caught her, holding her steady as she processed what had just happened. Lisa was already recording everything, ensuring the declaration was legally binding. However, Korath continued, I require something in return. Jake tensed. What? Time. Allow me to speak with Vara privately for 1 hour. No guards, no observers. Just a conversation. Korath's expression was unreadable. I owe her that much. Vara nodded slowly. I agree. Jake wanted to protest, but this was her choice.
He stepped back and Lisa followed him out of the dome, leaving Korath and Vara alone.
Think he'll try to change her mind?
Lisa asked once they were outside.
Maybe, but I don't think she'll change it. Jake watched through the transparent wall as Korath and Vara sat across from each other talking. She's fought too hard to get here. An hour later, they emerged. Vara's eyes were red, but her expression was resolved. Korath looked older somehow, less certain of himself. We have reached an understanding, Korath announced. Vara will remain here under human protection. In exchange, I ask that the Colonial Authority consider hosting Kelrath diplomatic observers. We have much to learn from each other. Lisa's eyebrows shot up. That's a significant offer. My people have grown complacent in our power. Perhaps it is time we remembered that strength comes in many forms. Korath turned to Jake. You fought for someone you barely knew. You risked everything for a principle. That is either madness or profound nobility. I find myself uncertain which. Maybe both, Jake said with a slight smile. Indeed. Korath extended his hand, a human gesture that clearly took effort. "You have my respect, Jake Morrison. Protect her well." Jake shook the offered hand, feeling the massive strength in Korath's grip. "I will." As the Kelrath shuttle lifted off, carrying Korath and his warriors back to their fleet, Jake and Vara stood watching. The warships in orbit began to move, repositioning for departure. "What did you two talk about?" Jake asked. "He apologized," Vara said quietly. "I never expected that. He said he had been thinking during the debate, questioning things he had never questioned before. He realized he did not know me at all, despite 5 years of marriage." She wiped her eyes. "He asked me to forgive him. Did you?" I told him I would try. "That forgiveness takes time." Vara looked at Jake. "He also asked if I was staying here because of you." Jake felt his heart skip. "What did you say?" "I said I was staying because here I can be myself. Because here someone saw me as a person before seeing me as Kelrath, or as female, or as anything else." She smiled, small but genuine. "I told him you were my friend." "Just friends?" Vera's smile widened. "For now. But I have all the time in the world to figure out what comes next. That is what freedom means, yes? The ability to decide for myself." "Yeah," Jake said. "That's exactly what it means." They walked back toward the ranch together as the Kelrath fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving only the stars above Mars and the promise of tomorrow. 3 months later, Vara had become an integral part of the ranch operations and something more. The colonial authority had indeed established diplomatic relations with the Kelrath Empire, with Vara serving as an unofficial cultural liaison. She split her time between helping Jake with the ranch and working with diplomats from both species to build understanding. The work was challenging but rewarding. Vara discovered she had a talent for bridge building, for finding common ground between vastly different cultures. More than that, she discovered she enjoyed it. Every day brought new problems to solve, new connections to forge. Jake found himself marveling at her transformation. The frightened woman he'd pulled from the dust storm had become confident and purposeful. She smiled more, laughed more, lived more. Their relationship evolved slowly, carefully. Jake refused to rush anything, conscious of Vara's past and her need to make her own choices. But there were moments. Hands brushing while working on equipment. Long conversations under the Martian stars. Looks that lasted just a bit too long. One evening, while reviewing expansion plans for the protein farms, Vara set down her tablet and turned to Jake. "I've been thinking," she said, about what comes next, for me. "For us." She took a breath. "I am grateful beyond measure for what you did, for the freedom you helped me claim. But I do not want gratitude to define our relationship." Jake nodded slowly.
Oh, okay.
"What do you want to define it? Choice. Partnership. Equality." Vara met his eyes. "I want to choose you, Jake Morrison. Not because I owe you, not because you saved me, but because in these months I have come to care for you. Because you see me as I am and value what you see. Because when I think about my future, I want you in it." Jake felt something warm bloom in his chest. "I want that too. But I need you to be sure. No pressure, no obligation. Just honest choice?" "I am certain," Vara said firmly. "For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want." Jake leaned forward, and Vara met him halfway. The kiss was gentle, tentative, perfect. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "So what now?" Jake asked. "Now we build something new. Together." Vara pulled up the expansion plans on her tablet. "Starting with doubling the protein farm capacity. The diplomatic corps is requesting regular supplies, and we could use the income." Jake laughed. "Leave it to you to go from romantic moment to business planning in 5 seconds?" "I am efficient," Vara said with mock seriousness. "It is one of my many attractive qualities." "That it is." They worked late into the night, planning expansions, discussing possibilities, building a future neither had imagined possible. Outside, the Martian wind whispered across the red plains, carrying with it the promise of morning. Word of Vara's story spread through human space and beyond. She became something of a symbol, proof that bridges could be built between species, that understanding was possible even across vast cultural divides. The Kelrath Empire, slowly and cautiously, began examining its own traditions, not changing overnight, but questioning, evolving. Korath himself visited Mars 6 months later, officially this time, as part of a diplomatic delegation. He and Vara met privately again, their conversation lasting hours. When they emerged, both seemed lighter somehow. He is trying, Vara told Jake afterward, questioning the traditions he was raised with. He has even advocated for reforms in marriage law, though it will take generations to change minds. That's something, Jake said. It is everything. One person willing to question and grow can change the course of history. She squeezed his hand. You taught me that. Pretty sure you taught yourself. I just provided the space to figure it out. The ranch continued to thrive. What had been a lonely outpost became a hub of activity. Diplomats visited regularly. Kelrath observers came to study human agricultural methods. Human engineers went to Kelrath worlds to share ideas. And at the center of it all was a woman who had run away from everything, to find herself and a man who had simply done what he thought was right. Lisa Chen, now serving as chief legal counsel for Mars-Kelrath relations, visited often. Added, she marveled at how a simple act of kindness had spiraled into interstellar cooperation. You know, historians are going to write about this, she told Jake during one visit. The rancher who started a diplomatic revolution. That's giving me way too much credit, Jake protested. All I did was not be a jerk to someone who needed help. Exactly. Imagine if more people operated on that principle. Lisa grinned. You've set an impossibly high bar for basic human decency. But for Jake, it wasn't about history or legacy. It was about the woman working beside him in the greenhouse, her silver-toned skin catching the artificial light, her expression one of complete focus as she calibrated growth systems. It was about the life they were building together, one choice at a time. Vara looked up, caught him watching, and smiled. That smile still had the power to stop his heart. She walked over, wiping soil from her hands. The new crop is exceeding projections, she reported. We will harvest 40% more than estimated. You're a miracle worker, Jake said. I simply optimize systems. It is what I do. She paused. Jake, I've been meaning to ask you something. Shoot. In human culture, when two people wish to formalize their partnership, they engage in marriage. Is this something you would consider? Someday, I mean. Not immediately, but perhaps in the future. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Are you proposing to me? I am inquiring about your theoretical openness to the concept, Vara corrected, but her cheeks darkened in what he'd learned was the Kelroth equivalent of a blush. Yes, Jake said simply. Someday, when you're ready, when we're both ready, I'd consider it. Hell, I'd more than consider it. Vara's smile widened. Good. That is good information to have. For future reference. For future reference, Jake agreed, pulling her close. They stood like that for a long moment. Two beings from different worlds who had found common ground in the red dust of Mars. Around them, the greenhouse hummed with life, plants growing toward artificial suns reaching for light. It seemed appropriate somehow. Growth required the right conditions, the right care. Vara had chosen freedom. Jake had chosen to help her. Together, they had chosen each other, and from those choices, something beautiful was growing. Outside, the Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and purple. In orbit, both human and Kelrath ships maintained peaceful watch. And on a small ranch in the southern highlands, two people planned for tomorrow, unaware that their story would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. They didn't need to know. They had everything they needed right here, in this moment, in each other. The rest would take care of itself. As night fell over Mars, Jake and Vara returned to the main habitat, walking side by side, partners in every sense of the word. Behind them, the greenhouse lights glowed like beacons in the darkness, promising growth and life and possibility. The Kelrath had a saying, one Vara had taught Jake. It translated roughly to, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Vara had been tested by flame and emerged stronger, freer, more herself than ever before. And Jake had learned that sometimes the biggest adventures began with the simplest choice, to see someone in need and decide to help, no questions asked, no rewards expected. Everything else flowed from that single moment of compassion. In the years to come, historians would debate the factors that led to the Human-Kelrath alliance. They would analyze diplomatic strategies, economic factors, political pressures. They would compile thousands of pages of analysis and theory. But those who were there, who witnessed it firsthand, knew the truth. The alliance began with a dust storm, a desperate woman, and a rancher who refused to look away. It began with one person choosing kindness over fear, freedom over tradition, hope over despair. It began with a choice, and in the end, that's all any of us have. The choice to do better, be better, reach for something more. Vara had made that choice. Jake had made that choice, and the galaxy was better for it. As they settled in for the night, reviewing tomorrow's tasks and planning next week's diplomatic reception, Jake caught Vara's hand and held it. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing here. For choosing this life. For choosing me." Vara leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for giving me the freedom to choose, for showing me what it means to be truly myself." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Mars rotate beneath its small moons, two souls who had found each other across the vast emptiness of space. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new choices to make, but tonight they had this moment, this peace, this love. And really, what more could anyone ask for? The universe was vast and strange and full of wonder. But here, in this small habitat on this red world, two people had found something rare and precious. They had found home. Not in a place, but in each other. And that, more than any diplomatic treaty or cultural exchange or historical milestone, was what mattered most. That was the real victory, not over the Kelrath Empire, human limitations, or ancient traditions, but over loneliness, over fear, over the barriers that separate one being from another. Love, it turned out, was the greatest act of rebellion. And freedom, the sweetest victory of all.